Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Tech Tuesday. Every time I do this, I worry I'm going to say Foresight TV when I mean Tech Tuesday or Tech Tuesday, but so far I've gotten it right. Today I've got Matthew Edgerton on. He has got some amazing technology for older people to look at cognitive assessments. Matthew was on a few months ago, and so we're going to do an update and figure out where he's at and what's going on with this technology. This is really, really exciting stuff. But before we get into our conversation, this. Hey guys, Steve Moran here. Matthew, welcome back.
Thanks, Steve.
Let's actually start with just a little bit of, let's assume that people didn't watch the first show, and let's talk a little bit about your big idea and the technology and the big problem you're trying to solve.
Sure. So, the world's getting a lot older quite quickly. Roughly 1 in every 6 people is over the age of 65, and that's going to increase for the next couple of years. And so I personally was affected by some family members that dealt with Alzheimer's and dementia. And a lot of people know that struggle. So about a year ago, I left and started Cogensus. And it's our vision that we can move cognitive health from a reactive view to a proactive view. So trying to get in front of these things before they become huge issues, right? I have a single slide on this. It might be worth showing.
Okay, let's take a look at that.
This is just something for folks who weren't caught up on the last one, but effectively in the US alone, we're looking at a massive population growth between people who are over the age of 65 in the next 30 years. I mean, it's going to be a serious tide, if you will. And then on top of that, as I mentioned, diseases like Alzheimer's and dementia just statistically are going to double, which is huge. Yep. And then the third piece of this, which, this all informed Cogensus, I'll just say that, right, is that loneliness, which as much as we have these connective technologies, we have never been lonelier than we are now. So it's one of those weird, opposite effects, but loneliness and cognitive decline are deeply interrelated. So this problem is what started Cogensus. And then, yeah.
Yeah, so this is real. They're fascinating numbers to me. I'm a boomer. I'm right smack dab in the middle. I'm 70. One of the things that I've sort of been more aware of recently in the last 4 or 5 months is just as I'm going out shopping or going out to eat, the crowds are older. And of course, the reason they're older is because we're all of about the same age and we've got the money to spend and it is just different. And I'm really fascinated by the plague of loneliness. I find myself, it's an area that I struggle a little bit with personally. I've got lots of amazing contacts around the country, but sort of locally, it becomes a bigger problem.
Sure.
And I wonder if, and I don't know if there's any research on this, I don't know whether you have any thoughts or know anything about it, but I wonder if the current generation of boomers, the companionship, the desire for friends and friendship and times is actually much higher than it's ever been just because we have more leisure time. What do you think?
I think it's twofold, right? So traditionally, boomers were very career centric. And a lot of those careers didn't necessarily build some of those deeper friendships that you might find in a localized community. The other part of that's been really tricky is we were, boomers, millennials, both, right? We were caught in the early days of social media, which had this promise of making everyone friends. But what we found is it increased this superficial level of connectedness, but it doesn't satiate the desire for true friendship or companionship. So I think it's really a bifurcated problem, but it's a problem nonetheless. So yeah, I agree.
You're absolutely right. I remember when Facebook first came out. I loved it. I was able to stay in touch with friends all over that I wouldn't see and follow their lives. And oftentimes I'd see a post and it would lead to me picking up my cell phone and calling somebody and having a conversation and going much deeper. And of course, today it's sort of turned into this right now, and particularly sort of this cesspool of political conversation. Or the flip side is sort of small one up. Let me show you my great vacation. I hope you get to go do that someday, right? So there's some of that as well.
For sure. Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, that's those technologies, they got so commercialized that they don't really match their original function, promise, whatever you will, right?
Yeah.
The whole internet broadly became algorithmic to the point of not fun anymore. We'll just say that.
Yeah. No question on that. I clicked on something a few days ago on Facebook that I was just curious about, and it has transformed my feed into a whole bunch of stuff I don't want. And I know that over time it'll go away, but it's just really annoying. And you don't really have any ability to go and say, "Hey, I hate this stuff. I don't want this." Something else. So anyway, let's get back to technology. So let's talk about how your technology works and how it solves these big problems.
Sure. So, I mean, let's flash up that slide I brought with us. There's only one more we need to show up here. But Cogensus was built from what I call crowd demand / market need. So this company was actually founded based on a combination of anecdotal and survey work that I personally did with older individuals, their families, and the providers that work with those people. So Cogensus was and is a platform designed to make for easy data collection around how you're feeling throughout the day. In parallel, it also alleviates some aspects of perceived loneliness. It enhances providers' view of your cognitive process, and then it deepens your family relationships, so building that more rich community through the sharing of memories, but the memories that are specific to you. So the way this works is there is a front end, which we use virtual agents that you communicate with. So think ChatGPT type stuff, right? Makes it very easy for you to engage and just quickly tell them how you're feeling. They can ask you questions, basic stuff, right? As we go through that process, we capture these insights about how you are doing on a few different areas. So verbal, memory, and mood. And then some of those are cross-referenced with validated medical instruments. Those are used by the providers, right? So we don't diagnose you. We simply give an insight into how you're feeling at a more human level, as opposed to some of these assessments were more just based on metrics, right? And then that doesn't sound very fun though, right? That sounds like something you would do. Your doctor would say you have to do this. So the fun part about this is because of these new AI tools, they're really fun. People like creating things with AI, like pictures and videos and all that. It's fun to do. So what we do is we give you the ability to take your memories and put them through an AI flow and then capture those into different formats and then store them in a book. And that book can be shared within your interfamily unit. It's not social media. So the only way people get access to this is if you personally give them their code, and then they can see your stuff and you guys can collaborate on those. So that's it in a nutshell. But the tail on this is, I will say, so we recently did a study. We went out to a senior community from some of our early access people. We showed them all of these proposed designs before we went live with the prototype. And 6 out of 6, both from the provider side and the older adult side, scored it as very high, meaning they would use it either 3 times a week, in some cases every single day. So it was a hugely positive response to our initial hypothesis.
Okay, so let's actually, look, where do I want to start? So first off, could you maybe turn family members into your avatar?
You can, yes. So there's a family circle view that when you connect someone to it, their face becomes your picture, or their face becomes their picture.
Right, got it. Okay, so let's take my stepfather. As I was telling you, I haven't written about this. Not secret. I just haven't gotten to writing about it. But last Monday, I moved him into a residential care home. Honestly, it's not gone well. Won't go into the details here, but I will write about it. And so tomorrow I'm moving him to a different community. It's a place where my mom had stayed until she passed away a number of years ago. I know the owner, so it'll be and I didn't go there just because people were wondering, why didn't you do that first? He didn't have an opening, and that changed over the weekend. So anyway, but so I'm really, he's sort of moderate to heading into severe Alzheimer's, dementia. How would I use this platform with him?
Yeah. So, I mean, the way we built this experience is all around your stepfather. So you are an active participant in this journey, right? Your stepfather's decline, for lack of a better word. But the idea is that, so whether we'll say before severe Alzheimer's, because that's a very different equation than early to moderate, right?
Right.
In moderate and early, you still have periods of lucidity and you restore to who you were at the correct time point. So during those periods of lucidity, this would be a great time for him to engage with his buddy within Cogensus. So he would select a buddy that he would communicate with. And that buddy's always on call for him to speak with. That buddy can ask him questions about how he's feeling, about certain topics, his favorite memories, or he can just vent, right? Those records are stored both for your access as well as the provider's access, as long as he agrees to make them available to you. So you could actually see how your dad is doing on a much deeper basis throughout the day if you would like to, and he wants you to see, right? Then you can encourage him to convert those stories or instances of conversation into memories that you guys can either jointly review or just you can have them. So okay. That's the tool.
So, and it would be on a tablet?
It can be. So currently our prototype is on mobile. We're within the next month, we're going to make the advanced prototype available on tablet and mobile.
Okay. Yes. So I could potentially put this on his, I'm sure I couldn't put it on his iPhone because it's like an iPhone 1 or 2 or something like that. It's really terrible. And
he could run it. So the platform is actually built, the prototype right now is built on a responsive mobile app. So there is no gating factor as far as like Google Store and things like that.
Okay, great. So he could probably even run it on that. And the truth is that while he has a moment of, pretty good clarity, my guess is he would not be able to fire up the app, but we could do that, or the staff at the community could do that. So
correct. You guys could do it together. There's no problem with that.
Okay, great. And then it's not a communication app, right? So no, I couldn't do live communication like a FaceTime or a messenger thing with him on that.
So you can actually share notes on the pictures and records, so you guys can communicate that way. However, in future, we are actually adding a live FaceTime function. So cool. The FaceTime function will be coming probably early next year. But it's designed to be, again, the point of this is not to replace people using AI. It's to use AI to make the experience easier, funner, but with the goal of entrenching familial transparency.
Okay. So let's sort of talk a little bit about, I don't know that you're comfortable with the term, the clinical value, but I'm going to use that as sort of lacking a more artful term. How do I use the data as a family member or part of a care team to give the older one who's using this a better quality of life?
Sure. So I will tell you, I'm going to talk about that in the form of use cases because we've seen a couple.
Perfect.
One of them is, so the specific insights when we're using validated tooling for that. So think of like cognitive assessments. You would not actually see that. That is only for provider's view. So someone with a medical license type thing. However, one of the biggest use cases was as people look at these records, they find that they can start to see patterns on when someone is living in a certain mental time period or when they're feeling good throughout the day, things like that. And so they adjust the care management team or the care management plan according to those intervals. So a good use case was in our first study, we consulted with some providers at a senior community, which had a mix of rural and urban folks. And they said, look, we're doing shift changes. And so we're walking into a room and we don't know how so-and-so is doing today. Like, so they can quickly understand where that person is from a mental time period, their mood, how to engage with them, all in the span of like 10 minutes, which is super useful for these folks.
Cool. And how many days does somebody have to use it before you've got enough data to create value?
So our original plan here is probably about a month and a half. But when we say using, those intervals are around 5 minutes, maybe 3 times a week. So it's a very low barrier to adoption, for lack of a better word.
Okay. And so I'm sitting here, I'm going to be more very specific, right? So I'm looking at this and I'm figuring I might be able to twist your arm and get an early look at this with my stepfather. But let's say that I'm the guy who owns the senior communities where he's at, and I'm looking at it and say, I don't want to just use this for Gary. I want to use this for all of my residents who would do that. Talk to me about availability and that kind of thing.
Yeah. So the really exciting thing is, so the prototype that we have out right now, which is super limited usage group, that is being advanced, and we're releasing what we call our Alpha Light in probably another 15, 20 days here. And that Alpha Light will be able to do paid POCs, and those are much longer with much broader usage bases. So what we're doing, just so everyone's clear, what we're doing from now to then is we're building out all the content generation features in a richer way to make it much funner, because currently that's a little limited. We had to get the flow and everything working correctly. But the way they would get that is very simple. In the near term, all they have to do is join our waitlist. If they put a waitlist note in on our website, or they contact me directly, we will set them up for a POC. In early next year, they'll be able to simply download a license from the web. So they can just go that way.
Okay, terrific. And then do you know what the pricing is going to be on it?
Yeah, so for POCs, we don't. So POCs are a little independent because they're limited use windows. But the general pricing that we're looking at for next year is $225 per elder user. So that's a year. So $225 a year. And what that means, though, is like, so for you, any of your stepfather's care team, none of those are charged. They can log in. We just charge it per seat on your stepdad. So
okay. And then if I'm running a senior living community where I've got 10, 20, or 100 people, do I have a dashboard with that? And how does that work?
You sure do. You have a dashboard. So we have a provider view dashboard. We use the term provider loosely, by the way. Some people go, provider is a credentialed clinician. Right. We use provider meaning social worker, nurse, caregiver, like someone with a responsibility for their base of folks. So yes, they have a dashboard. That dashboard has all their folks under it. We are going to be installing for larger clients the ability to do segmentation underneath. So permissions. So for instance, someone only has three people. These people have these 10 within one instance of a multi-tiered instance. That's coming out. But right now we have a dashboard where per facility site, they can have all the patients or elders in one instance, and then they can look at them as a unit.
Okay. And then do you do any flagging or notification if you see a change in behavior, condition, that kind of thing?
We do. We are starting that feature in Q1 of next year.
Okay.
So those are going to get really advanced. We are looking at things like negative mental thinking cycles, or self-harm risk, or depression indicator, things like that. So things that you go, okay, this is a bad trend.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I find is that seems intriguing to me, and you may be thinking about this, and it may be further down the road, but I know that there are individuals in senior living who kind of go through cycles, right? So they'll have a real up phase, and then they'll go into a real down phase, and it cycles back and forth. And I think it's an interesting idea is if I could take somebody who's at this high level and have early identification that they're starting to slide, are there actually things I could do to make maybe the slide will still happen, but it won't go as deep or last as long, right?
Sure. Yeah, that's the so what, right? So I think we have some advisors and folks who are working in the space of, we'll call more digitally enabled healthcare. And
Right.
what it comes down to is, so right now, Cogensus is built and being delivered as a observation management monitoring type tool, right? We are not an intervention. We're not going to personally step in and say, okay, so-and-so sliding, go do this for their care team, right? Or
Right.
their team. But there's a large discussion with folks all across the healthcare industry right now, including senior care, which is like, what's the so what? So, okay, I know this person's doing this, but what do I do now? And that's a place we're graduating into over time. But our view is that until you can find these things early and identify them, you can't do a so what. Because
Yeah.
right now, the way it works is that you're not going to know that person's in their depression well until they're already in it. And
That's
then
right.
it's like,
Yeah.
it's like, well, no, I don't know what to do now. They're just really depressed. They'll maybe come out of it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
And so if I'm running a 100-unit, well, let's do it start differently. I'm running a 50-person memory care community. What
Mhm.
percentage of people are likely to benefit from this?
So we are building the early prototypes for people with early to moderate symptomatic expression, right?
Huh?
And also people that may categorize or recognize themselves as feeling lonely. So
Okay.
that can be a broad base, right? But given
Yep.
that the usage requirements are very low, there's a lot of research saying that we think anywhere from 70 to 80% of that population could find a lot of value in this.
Okay. Cool.
So it's pretty
And
good numbers.
so in your trials, mostly are residents doing it where they've got some caregiver or family member who's assisting, or are you actually setting it up on their smart devices, their mobile devices, and they're just going in 2 or 3 times a week, or do they get pop-ups, or how does that work?
So, strangely, actually, what we found is that folks were much more tech literate than I think a lot of the community thinks people are. So most people, unless you're in severe Alzheimer's or severe dementia, right, really having issues on that end, are able to navigate the application with very little setup. We specifically designed it so that it's not hard to use. So the only part that traditionally we would have a caregiver input is the initial onboarding. But so the onboarding means when they first get their details entered. But we are actually changing that process now for future POC folks, where we will work with the care team to get all those details preloaded, and then they just get a sign-in link. So the only thing that we are finding that they're going to need to do is maybe remind them gently once a week, like, "Hey, did you use your Cogensus this week?" And they'll go, "Yeah, I did." Okay, cool. So,
Okay, great, good. Do they get pop-ups or anything to say, "Hey, it's time to check in"?
so they will get pop-ups in the app,
Okay.
but given that it's a responsive mobile website right now and not an app on your phone, we are going to be building that app early next year. You won't get pings to your device, right? But we do have things like mobile authentication and things like that, of course.
Got it. Of course, the other thing you might do, I mean, it's sort of maybe primitive, but maybe it actually works well, would be to just set up a broadcast style notification using text message for saying, "Hey, have you done your Cogenesis today? If not, here, click on this link," and it would take them to where they need to be. So I don't know. I think
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
yeah. I think it's really, really fascinating to see where this is going. So you probably don't have enough data on this, but I'm wondering, have you had enough experience with any individuals where you can say, this person did this and this is how it made their life better, it made their senior living experience better?
So I will give a very short one that was
Okay.
weirdly specific. So very early on, I had a family friend use the app. She's an older woman, very capable, very smart. She's actually living on her own, but she has some family issues with certain mental issues, right?
Right.
And I said, "Hey, I'm building this thing. Do you mind just trying it out for a little bit, see how it goes?"
Yeah.
And so she got into it, and she immediately started asking it really hard questions about dealing with people in her life. So she had complicated family setup, right? And from that instance, literally a 20-minute usage window, she got ideas on how to navigate her interpersonal drama. And she was like, wow, this is super useful. She's like, sign me up. I need this like immediately. And it was very hard topics. These weren't things like, oh, let me tell you about the time I went to the park. These were like, I have a complicated relationship with my blank family member, and I don't know what to do about blank. And she workshopped it real time with the virtual bot and came up with an idea that she was very happy and ended up putting it into practice in her life. And it was like, whoa, this works. So
okay, so I got to back up a minute. I think I learned something new that I didn't realize. You sort of talked in terms of these very short burst interactions, right? And the biggest reason I'm moving my stepfather from the community he's at to where he's at is that the caregivers just don't have the skills to interact with him. You can have conversation with him, but he's very, very forgetful. Doesn't remember, what day is it? It's Wednesday. What time is it? It's Wednesday noon. 30 seconds later, hey, what day is it? Wednesday, it's that kind of thing. And so he needs somebody who can do that. And I actually think that I could, if I built my dream, I don't know whether it does this, or my dream would be to put a series of questions in there that are very that are relative to him. So he's interested in football, and he's interested in politics, and he's interested in the stock market. And that the app could ask him those questions, and he might have a conversation that's 30 minutes long that would keep him occupied. He'd feel like he was engaged. He would be engaged, and it would give you data. Is that possible?
It sure is. So one of the things we're doing is when you submit those notes, so there's two ways of doing it right now. So one, which we already have built into the tools, when you submit the notes on a record, you could say, hey, Dad, or I'd really like you to talk about football for me. Well, you and I will talk about this later, but go ahead and talk with Pete, your buddy, about football, right? He can engage with Pete anytime, and Pete is competent enough to go down that. We've done some really extreme testing with these bots. In future versions, you will actually be able to submit questions on a form which will populate to the bot. And so you can say, I want you to ask these questions for me. And then those same conversation records can be extracted. So you are correct. That is the direction we are already moving, because it's been asked for by more people than just yourself.
Yeah, I look at it, just something as simple. He was actually a backup quarterback for Stanford back in the 50s, and
wow.
huge 49er fan. And I just think, being able to have this thing say, hey, Gary, how do you think the 49ers are going to do? And what do you think of their quarterback? Or you're probably not cognitive enough anymore to say, what did you think of that last game? But those are the kinds of things that could be really significant. So,
yeah, and I'll tell you this. So in the version that will be commercially released, it's going to have, I'll call it responsive recursive learning, however you want to frame it. So every time they have a conversation, it actually starts to build an internal profile on Gary. And so it knows Gary likes football. So in future conversations, it will move him that direction if he wants to go that way. Cool. So currently, for our early prototypes, there's I'd say a generalized set of questions that will be applicable to a wide audience, 80-20 rule, right? But those are all allowed to be, you can get more specific with every conversation, and it is competent enough to do so. So it also can be done in 6 languages, which is fun. Cool. So you can even switch languages mid-combo, and it works.
Right. So, okay. So let's just do a quick little commercial here for you. How do people find, we did this earlier, but how do people find you? How do people get started on the waiting list and that kind of thing?
Sure. Very simple. So go to cogensus.com, which is there at the bottom of the screen. There's a section called Get Cogensus. Please just go there and log your information. We monitor it all the time. We are building the secondary waitlist. So the next Alpha Light prototype coming out, we would love to have additional providers, folks test it. That's low charge, no charge kind of deal. And then anyone on that list will be pre-allocated for the commercial list in 2026. So yeah, that's it.
Great. Matthew, this is great. This is the kind of stuff that really makes a huge difference in the lives of older people, improves their lives, improves, makes caregivers more efficient. So I really love this. I'm looking forward to trying it with my stepfather. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Steve. It's been a real pleasure as always. And yeah, everyone, please go to cogensus.com and get Cogensus. I want to give it to you guys.